Welcome, everybody. It is 4th of July, America's birthday, all this other stuff that, goes along with 4th of July and celebrating America's independence and all that good stuff. This is Mock It Like It's Hot, as we do every Monday morning at 11 a.m., except when Brian's on vacation. I'm your fill-in host.
We do holidays, but not when I'm not here.
Exactly, right? Because Ryan's vacation is the holiday.
That's true.
I'm your fill-in host, Joshua Hudson. With me, as always, my trusty co-host, Brian Weisse at the Fantasy 5 on Twitter, and our guest this week, I'm gonna get the name right this time because I flubbed the guest name like 3 weeks in a row. Tyler Hernandez from Dynasty Nerds. Tyler, how are we doing this morning, brother?
I'm fantastic. How are y'all?
It's great. Going great.
I was gonna say Josh is trying to make a late play for his job, but stay tuned for the end of the show because he doesn't get it.
Is this my audition?
Spoiler. No, Tyler, we have a spoiler, I guess. There will be a new guest host starting next week. We're firing Josh. He gets to go back to the background of everything.
Firing the boss. Yeah, that's always a good one.
Exactly.
So anyway, this week we are, last couple of weeks we focused on redraft. This week we're hopping over and we're doing some best ball. So Ryan, I'll kick it over to you. I'll let you intro the draft, get everything started.
Yeah. So as Josh mentioned, I want to try to pepper in at least one best ball draft per month as we're working towards redraft season. And so it's going to essentially be 3 redraft drafts and then a best ball draft every month. And the big focus here, I try to set these drafts up very similar to the Underdog Best Ball Mania. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that tournament later on. But the long and short of it is Underdog is not a sponsor of ours. We should probably get that figured out because I've been talking about it all damn summer. But they are not a sponsor of ours. But for a $25 entry, you are in a pool to possibly win $2 million. If you're not familiar with Best Ball, actually, I'm going to start the draft here and then I'll start to talk about if you're not familiar with Best Ball here in just a second. So we have our boy Kevin at the 101. I am going to click start draft and Kevin will get us started as long as he gets the notification. I thought I had my notifications off. I don't know why that made such a big noise. Oh, one of you guys must have it on.
Maybe me.
Yeah.
But I'm not in the draft, so I don't know why it would.
Yeah, Tyler, if you have your notifications on, turn them off. But anyway, it's just very loud. So if you're not familiar with best ball, much like redraft, you draft a roster where it's 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a flex spot. But however, you do not pick your starting lineup every week. Every week, your best possible starting lineup is input for you. So all you have to do is make your picks at the beginning of the season and then hope that your guys don't get hurt, which we may have come up in a little bit later with the story from Tyler. But you're trying to just make picks that are going to have a very good season. And every different week, you can get guys who are going to pop off and get you higher scores. The team with the highest score at the end of the season is going to win $1 million. And then it all goes into a tournament. And the winner of that tournament is going to win $2 million. So over at Underdog, there's a ton of money up for grabs, and these best ball tournaments are kind of like fantasy football lottery.
I like it. All right, so we're coming up here on Tyler's first pick, so I'll kind of vamp a little bit before he makes his selection.
One last thing I wanted to throw out for everyone is just like with Underdog, we only have a 30-second clock here, so there is a little bit of pressure here to make your pick a little bit quicker. So Tyler's up making his pick right now. He got it in, but you have to be a little carefuler with that. So.
Yeah.
All right, so we've seen now 5 running backs off the board and arguably the top 2 wide receivers. So Tyler, you started from the 106.
Mm-hmm.
Walk us through what was the mindset on starting at the 106 and then obviously taking arguably one of the best wide receivers in the NFL and Justin Jefferson with your first pick.
When the mock opened up and I kind of had my pick, I felt like it was more common for people to fall into that 6, 7, 8 range than it is for you to fall into 1, 1, 1, 2 or a 1, 11, 1, 12. And so I kind of just wanted to put myself in that position. 1, 6 is about that area where those top 3 or 4 backs are off the board. You may have 1 or 2 receivers gone, and it's kind of that edging out of tier 1 into tier 2 and kind of how to play that. While y'all were talking, I noticed 4 picks in, Christian McCaffrey had started to fall. And I was really, really crossing my fingers he'd end up at 6.
I'm going to interrupt early. Your pick is up right now. The draft is moving kind of quick. I don't want you to miss your pick while talking.
Yeah, so. You're good.
Yep.
Perfect.
There we go. Continue,
Tyler. So Christian McCaffrey almost fell to me. Would have loved that. Justin Jefferson, it's best ball. You just got to kind of in a bubble, take the best player available when you're starting out, and then as you work down into your 6+ rounds, you kind of look towards upside more. But that's where I felt with Jefferson. He's obviously been at the top of the league since he came in. CD Lamb at 2.7. I love the upside that he has. He's got a pretty secure job. No Gallup for the beginning half of the year. He doesn't have too much target competition, especially if the front office doesn't figure out all this Dalton Schultz stuff. And I feel like he's going to walk into a good 24+% target share in Dallas, which had, if I'm not wrong, the number one passing offense last year. So you kind of being able to grab a number one that high in the middle of the second round is money.
Yeah, I mean, he's averaged over 1,000 yards per season, to start his career. So definitely a lot of upside sitting with Lamb. I want to give our guy, Zach FF Chalupa Batman, a quick shout out. He said, sorry, Tyler, but CMC wasn't getting past him. Well, I also want to give Zach a quick shout out for taking the all 2000 or the 2021 IR team here, the top 2 picks in McCaffrey and Barkley.
Well, I say he has the best team 2019 can buy. So
things you love to see. Love to see. All right. So I want to point out a couple strategies here. So our buddy Craig from Roto Heat Fantasy going with the bully tight end strategy here in best ball. So you've got Mark Andrews there at the 111, Kyle Pitts at the 2-2. Tyler, I know you're getting ready to come up on your pick, so give me some quick thoughts. Obviously, with this being best ball, you never know what could happen in a given week. Do you like this strategy? Do you think it kind of hinders you a little bit later?
The double tight end, I kind of love it. I'm a big tight end truther, tight end believer. I'm a guy that has always paid up for the Travis Kelce's of the league because that's a spot you can have the best overall roster. But
Tyler, you're up.
Yeah,
sorry, this is gonna be a very
no, you're good. You're good. We'll go no running back. But yeah, tight end is gonna be
fuck them running backs. I love it, Tyler. Go ahead.
Tight end is going to be the scarcest position in the league in terms of disparity. Like your top 3 are going to be fantastic and get you a ton of points. And then everything after like 5 or 6 is going to be just the biggest gap. So I understand it. You can run a tight end in the flex spot. So, I mean, last year I was running a double tight end in one of my dynasty leagues. So it can work. It's only crazy if it doesn't work. So
yeah, as most things are in life.
Exactly.
What's funny is I moved out of the 12 spot to not necessarily avoid doing that strategy. I would have made the exact same picks as Craig. Like without a doubt, it's how I attack the 10, 11, 12 spot. I was still planning on going tight end, and I wanted to see if this played out the way it played out for me. So I'm pretty happy the way the whole thing shook out, but I love the way Craig did the draft. It's exactly what I would have done.
Well, I mean, you kind of did your little bully tight end here with Kelsey and Waller. So yeah, it's right on par. I like it.
Yep.
So apparently only 3 people are going to have high quality tight ends this year. So this draft is yikes if you wanted to wait on the tight or get a good tight end. So, all right, cool. Tyler, you finally took your first running back. Give us your thoughts on Montgomery and why you think he slipped behind guys like Akers, the rookie Hall, Dobbins, and Gibson.
At this pick, just where ADP was set up by Sleeper, I was targeting J.K. Dobbins or Josh Jacobs there. I felt like those were 2 guys that were going to fall to me, but I feel like J.K. has insane upside. He's the number 1 rushing offense. Coming off the ACL, there's obviously worries, but when he was playing before his injury, he was averaging ungodly like 4.3 yards a carry or something stupid in a committee. So he's been one of my biggest buys and biggest loves this offseason in terms of dynasty. David Montgomery, I didn't expect him to fall down to me. Luckily he did. Love what Eberflus is bringing to that offense. He's a very run heavy, run eccentric guy. I could see a lot of him just kind of putting the decision, not necessarily read options all the time, but a real read option backfield between Montgomery and Fields, just running back there. And I think that he just has potential in a new offense that has luckily lost Matt Nagy to be successful and kind of work his way back up into relevance in fantasy.
I like it. Now, Ryan, I'm going to give you a shout out because you clearly won the draft by taking Deontay Johnson here in the 4th round. So
that's why I did it.
Kudos for playing and sucking up to your boss this early on 4th of July.
It's perfect. Now, I had a strategy there, and it blew up in my face. And I always like to share when this happens is there were 2 players I typically would draft ahead of Deontay Johnson. However, Deontay Johnson volume, he's a great fit on my team. I wanted to see, without me being involved, where Terry McLaurin and Michael Pittman are landing right now. They both went later in the 4th round. I love the value for Pittman. I don't so much love it for McLaurin. I would prefer if McLaurin were a 5th round pick. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that to see how everything shakes out there. It's going to be interesting.
All right. So finally, see a draft where Cortland Sutton goes above Jerry Jeudy, as rightfully so. So
they're catching up.
Tyler, let's get your thoughts on this Denver Broncos wide receiver room, because I see people on Twitter that are obviously hyping up Cortland Sutton. I see people that are hyping up Jerry Jeudy. I've seen some people that say that KJ Hamler is better than Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, that was the thing yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get your thoughts kind of on this wide receiver room here in Denver with new quarterback Russell Wilson.
I think that a lot of people are going to love Sutton more than Jeudy. Just because,
rightfully so. Continue.
I don't know on that. But, I mean, he's a big-bodied guy. It's easier to kind of
You're on clock, buddy.
Him and let what needs to be figured out be figured out. We'll do a little surprise pick.
I like it. Continue.
But I think Sutton's just easier to throw to in a vacuum. Jerry Jeudy is an elite route runner when he's healthy. Both of them have kind of dealt with injuries. So in the bubble, it's just, do you want Mike Evans or do you want the Chris Godwin? Do you want the big guy that you're able to throw to in a one-on-one situation, or do you want the guy that's going to have a little window and kind of eat up receptions in that intermediate 8 to 12 yard zone? I think if both are healthy, Jeudy has the potential to kind of live in that intermediate area. And if he is able to stay healthy, he'll be able to finish, wide receiver 2, like not wide receiver 2 overall, but wide receiver 2, that 12 to 24 area pretty comfortably. And I'd say the same thing for Sutton. I think we just need to see them on the field and see how it kind of works out with who Russell Wilson loves the most. But I personally put my vote of Jeudy just a hair above Sutton.
And that's where I started this offseason, and it wasn't even a hair for me. I was fighting the good fight of Jerry Jeudy against the world, and I had him 20 targets above Cortland Sutton. And then the arrest came in, and it's I'm not going to get super political here, but the arrest seemed like bullshit to begin with. And but still, it's not the right way to be in the public eye. And then the reports started coming out that Russell Wilson is just in love with Cortland Sutton, and you compared him to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and it's a good comparison if they're going to throw the ball 650 to 700 times. If you just go back to Seattle, exactly. If you go back to Seattle, they're going to throw more than Seattle did, because Seattle hates throwing the ball for some damn reason. But they're going to throw more than Seattle did, but not as much as New England or Tampa Bay does, rather. Mm-hmm. And so what you're going to end up running into is a situation where we know Cortland Sutton is the DK Metcalf of this offense. We've heard KJ Hamler say he's the Tyler Lockett. We've heard Jerry Jeudy be compared to the Tyler Lockett. And then we don't know what the hell Tim Patrick is, because they didn't use 3 wide receivers in Seattle. And so my worry is we know Sutton's role. We don't know everybody else's role. And so that's why the bitter taste in my mouth that's been coming out over the last 2 weeks is me switching. I am team Cortland Sutton when it comes to the Denver Broncos wide receivers.
Yeah. So. I will say,
welcome to the side of reason, Ryan.
I will say, in my main Dynasty league, I did flip. I have kind of changed my roster into a very contending roster, and I was able to flip Jeudy for Kelsey straight up, and I felt very good about the position that put me in.
Hold on a second. Someone gave you Travis Kelce for Jerry Jeudy?
Straight up.
Whew. Beautiful. That's the way I play Dynasty right there. That brings a tear to my damn eye.
All right. So we've talked some wide receivers. We've talked some running backs. We've obviously touched on the tight end. I want to talk about some quarterbacks here because this isn't a best ball draft that is in this like underdog, like the whole puppy bowl thing that they do where it's super flex. Mm-hmm. So we've seen some quarterbacks go fairly early in this draft. And one in particular that I do want to highlight is from our good buddy Kevin, who took Jalen Hurts as the QB4 off the board here. So, Tyler, I want to start with you. We understand the rushing upside. We know what that brings to the table from a quarterback perspective in fantasy. Is QB4 too high?
100%.
Ooh.
There is, I mean, just watching Jalen Hurts play in the league, obviously he's got, the shiny new toy off the lot in A.J. Brown that he's worked with extensively throughout the offseason previously. Like he got traded and then they started working together. They were at their friends' weddings and stuff, and they've been working out in the offseason. They kind of had that relationship already. But I just feel like I didn't see enough out of Jalen Hurts passing wise in terms of his accuracy and being able to make the NFL throws to be a quarterback for. Like he would have to put up insane rushing stats to make that draft position feasible. And while he's going to put up, tons of yards on the ground, I don't think he's going to put up enough to be at 4. I think maybe like a 6 or 7 on a fantastic year, but I think 4 is just way too high. You're losing value on him.
My counter to that argument is if they show the passing volume they showed in the first 7 weeks last year, and we have a great article coming out on Devontae Smith here in about 2 hours from our boy Drew Metcalf, and he gets into the passing volume. And the big thing to be aware of with the passing volume is they were damn near, I think, leading the league in passing volume last year for those first 7 weeks, and Hurts was the overall QB1. So the question is, if they're going to throw the ball that much again, can we see him as the 1 again? And so 4, I don't hate it as much as you do. It could be considered a reach, but he's also on the end. And as I've said every show for the eternity of this show, the end is get your guy territory. So if he wants Hurts and Hurts is his QB1 or top 3 QB, you take him there. The one thing I'll point out is that Sleeper doesn't allow us to set a draft up as best ball. So the auto drafters, I was going to kind of blame the auto drafters where you could typically see more quarterbacks go earlier in a underdog best ball draft. But the auto drafters also took Josh Allen in the damn 2nd round. So this feels pretty much like a best ball draft where someone just went quarterback entirely too early. Yeah. But like I said, the end is always get your guy territory. So when you're talking strategy, that's where you're going to want to take your guy and make sure that you walk away with him. So I don't hate it from that standpoint, but I totally get what you're saying, that the floor might not be as appetizing as other floors out there. So
definitely.
All right, and since we've officially hit 10 rounds, we've reached the fun-loving territory on this show known as shit on Cole Kmet time. Yep. Cole Kmet has gone now in the 9th round in like consecutive mock drafts for us, and somebody needs to be shamed for that. And Kevin, I'm not sorry because you should know better. You've been on the show with us plenty of times.
I do want to throw out there that Kevin and I, who started off as friends, have turned into mortal enemies when it comes to fantasy tight ends, because I like good fantasy tight ends and Kevin likes Cole Kmet and Dawson Knox. So, I mean, I don't quite understand his reasoning there. So just to throw my disclaimer out, I believe this is a troll job by Kevin. If it's not, I mean, whatever, it's a bad pick. Could Cole Kmet have a decent top 12 season? It's possible. Is he, I don't even know where he went, tight end 7 or something like that. No, don't make that pick. But it's such a thing now. they're not going to throw him the ball nearly as much as people think they are, and he's not going to score.
All right, so obviously we know my thoughts, we know Ryan's thoughts. So Tyler,
yeah, do you want to be wrong?
You I'm going to try to segue this because you have a pick coming up here, and I don't want you to stumble a little bit on your pick trying to defend Cole Kmet or agree
Well, the
with
good
us.
news is you can't trip over Cole Kmet. Someone did that.
There you go. All right, so Tyler, I'm going to need to get your thoughts here because I know obviously you're a big Dynasty Debbie guy. Cole Kmet being a third-year tight end. This is right around the time that they start to see these breakouts. Are you in or out on Cole Kmet this year? And be wise with your choice here. There's a lot hanging in the balance.
I mean, at the right price, I'm in on Kmet. I'm not actively seeking him out in trades and leagues that I'm already in any startup that I'm going into. If he's fallen down to an area where it's between him and, a back end tight end too, like if it's just a great price for him, he's fallen, no one understands that, he plays in the NFL, then I would love to grab him. He showed flashes last year. It's the same argument I have for Alberto. He showed flashes of being athletic and being a good target. And so it's just kind of seeing that over a full 17-game season and not just a full 17 plays throughout the season.
Yeah.
I would argue that he didn't show that many flashes of being that good because he couldn't catch in the end zone. And that's kind of where you need a tight end to shine.
Kyle Pitts, who went 2-2, caught one ball in the end zone.
I knew that was
he
going to happen.
averaged over 15 yards per reception. Cole Kmet was at less than half of that.
Yeah, that's the issue. There's so much. I knew this was eventually going to happen. Is how can you like Pitts and hate Kmet? Because I can, damn it.
Yes. I am all for the argument of Pitts being in Dynasty the number one overall, especially with the depletion of target share that they have there. He's got so much potential to just be Travis Kelce. And I mean, him and Travis Kelce kind of fell into the same area this offseason where
they are the number one.
There's not, I mean, Drake London coming in, obviously you want a rookie to do well, but they're kind of in the same position of they are the number one target and there's no real question about it. And so it'll kind of be that battle of youth versus age this year and kind of see who can pick up. Obviously you want to side with Pat Mahomes over Marcus Mariota, but just kind of seeing that tight end as the number one overall option, seeing where they play out and kind of how Pitts can take that into throughout his entire draft profile. They were like, he's just a big wide receiver. He's a tall, heavy wide receiver that ends up lining up on the line. And
and that's my big thing with Cole Kmet, because so many people talked about him when he came out that, he was the best tight end option in that class because he was most well-rounded. He could block, he could catch passes over the middle, etc. He was one of the worst blocking tight ends last year. Seriously, he was worse than Mike Gesicki, according to Pro Football Focus blocking grades. That's not a tier that you want to be on, at all. So, and this is where I just really don't get the hype. I get it. He had 93 targets last year. But for those people that really think he's going to see 120 this year because they don't have anybody else to throw to, they need to check themselves because this offense is coming in. They don't really throw to the tight end position. I don't care if that's the only option that you have. So, and for a guy that's proven that he can't catch in the end zone where it matters, I just don't see – I don't see the benefit there. This isn't going to be a high pass volume offense. They're not going to throw 600 plus times. So that's going to limit the target share upside that a guy that had 93 targets is going to have. That's just where I'm at with Kmet. I agree.
I do want to throw.
I agree in the sense that if you're sitting in the 14th, 15th round and he's there, sure, take the dart throw. But for these people that are taking him in the 9th, 10th, Like I've seen him go as high as like the 7th in some instances. Like that's asinine to me. That's terrible.
I want to throw one quick thing out because Craig had a little fun in the chat about us killing Kevin. Kevin is a great friend of mine, great friend of the show. He's done every show iteration that we have. He's done this show. He's done our DFS show. I think we've had Kevin everywhere. We love Kevin. Kevin drafted Komet so that we would yell at him on this chat. So he knew what he was doing. We know what we're doing. It's all love here. So.
We always have to have one segment where we shit on Cole Kmet. Some people just have to take the bullet.
Exactly.
Kevin, you are a gentleman and a scholar, and we love you, buddy.
And if you've never followed Club Fantasy before, we will also own up to our mistakes. So if Cole Kmet is a good tight end this season, we will have.
The only one that will actually say, damn, we were wrong is you and I. Joe's going to ride that train.
Our main host, Joe, will figure out a way that it wasn't his fault. But I will definitely own up to this. I may even have to make some sort of charity bet because, my goodness, we have went in on Cole Kmet for the last eternity. But it's all love, especially between Kevin and I. We have a ton of fun with this. And so we're definitely not shitting on Kevin, and we're definitely not destroying our drafters. We love having people in the draft. This is what it's all about. We haven't really talked about. The point of this show is that folks who don't do this every day, like Tyler, Josh, and myself, can go back and see how to use mock drafts, what they should be doing differently, how to prep for their upcoming draft, talking draft strategy, and more importantly, when to target certain players. There are going to be players that you want on your fantasy team, and you need to know when to get them. If you know you want Travis Kelce, you need to know that in some drafts, especially if you're in the draft with me, he has a first-round ADP, so you can't wait till the second round to walk away with Travis Kelce. You need to be willing to use your first-round pick to get him. But it goes that way for all of your favorite players. Maybe you have a strong opinion on Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, and you need to know where you're going to get your guy in that scenario. And then also, when it comes to best ball, roster construction is huge. You need to know how many quarterbacks you plan on walking away with, wide receivers, running backs, all of that, because it changes based on the draft itself. There are going to be players that are very good in a regular draft that aren't great for best ball and vice versa.
I'm glad you brought up roster construction. The first position you mentioned was quarterback, because I want to highlight here our good buddy, Joe Pepe, who is the star of our Dunking on Joe show. And he's gone through and absolutely avoided the quarterback position up until round 12, and then absolutely loaded up with Cousins, Wentz, and Jameis Winston. So I'll start with you, Tyler. Give me your thoughts on this from a best ball strategy perspective.
I'm not against it. I at least want to walk out of a draft with 2 quarterbacks. You know, you've got bye weeks and everything, possibly 3 if you're running into someone that has high upside, but also has had somewhat of an injury history or has the potential, like Lamar Jackson, who's always getting hit. He's got a lot of potential to end up.
Jameis Winston is still walking with a limp right now.
So 2 to 3 is my kind of golden area, and I don't hate the strategy. I would have taken a quarterback a little bit earlier just to kind of secure a true QB1. I mean,
you could argue that he has that with Kirk Cousins. I mean, this is a guy that consistently throws over 30 touchdowns every year. He's going into an offense that now is going to run more 11 personnel. He has, a top 2-3 wide receiver in the league in Justin Jefferson. Like, you could argue that he got a QB1 in the 11th round.
Yeah, no, I love Kirk Cousins, and I'm always the biggest proponent of consistency is oftentimes better than just a one-season blowout.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of if he had gone around before, the 3 picks after him when he took Alexander Madison were Justin Fields, Derek Carr, and Tua. I think that at least 2 of those 3, not Mr. Turn the Ball Over, would be a lot better options to have at that 1. And then Kirk Cousins falls to you as your QB2 to kind of secure that lineup, as if Cousins pops off 1 week, then you're in a great position. But if he's just that consistent 12 to 15 points, that's not going to really win you best ball games and leagues.
And it's an interesting strategy because then while you were talking, he added Ryan Tannehill as well. So what you're really just banking on at a four quarterback is a very uncommon roster construction for best ball. But what you're banking on is that one of these guys has to pop off. Like that's essentially you're looking at your team and saying someone has to do it, right? And so I don't hate it. It probably makes him weaker at other positions. I haven't like completely studied his team.
I mean, he's got a pretty solid wide receiver core. Tyreek Hill, Terry McLaurin, Cortland Sutton, Darnell Mooney, Rashad Bateman, and then the rookie Olave in the 9th round. I would argue that, obviously he waited at tight end as well. Going Braid, Everett. Running back's a little weaker, especially when you factor in Kamara potentially being gone and suspended for however many games. He's got Derrick Henry, and that's about it.
Yeah. And so, I was going to say the Kamara pick is mildly concerning. Where he got him, it's way better than what his ADP
Correct.
is showing right now. I'm sorry. I'm scrolling on the wrong. But where he got him is way better than his ADP is showing right now. But you still, in a best ball, you're concerned that you're going 6 weeks without your number 1 running back and number 2 for his team. So
correct, yeah. So I think there's a lot hinging on James Cook and how valuable he's going to be in that Buffalo offense. I mean, he could very well have, a team's RB1 in Ronald Jones. I say team's RB1 because he's probably not going to be better than RB3 in fantasy. But, to get him in the 10th round, I don't think that's a bad case at all. And then obviously with Alexander Madison, that's always a nice stash for a best ball play because you never know with Dalvin Cook and his injury history. So definitely some interesting strategy there. So, all right, as we come up on the 18th round, this is usually around the time where we say, all right, some of the best picks you saw in the draft, some of the most questionable picks we saw in the draft. Ryan, I don't know if any picks have stood out to you that have kind of made you scratch your head a little bit.
No, in a positive manner. I wanted to, we've been giving Kevin a hard time, but landing Tim Patrick in the 12th round, we kind of hit on this already. From the stories I'm hearing, it sounds like, at least as of now, that it will be Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick in 2 wide receiver sets for the Denver Broncos. So whether you love Jerry Jeudy or not, Tim Patrick shouldn't be going this many rounds behind Jerry Jeudy in fantasy drafts. And so to land him in the 12th, and I don't know if his ADP is ever going to catch up, Tim Patrick has filled in admirably for injured Broncos wide receivers over the last 2 seasons.
That's what got him his contract extension.
Exactly. But I think what people's concern is that nobody's hurt right now. So why do I want Tim Patrick when no one's hurt? Well, this is a very different team and offense. Now you could argue it's a Denver Broncos-esque offense, so maybe they don't use 3 wide, but it's a better quarterback. It's going to be a little bit different team. I think if there's going to be someone who suffers in this offense, and it's the same reason we're shooting down Cole Kmet, it's Albert O. I think you could see an issue where Albert O is first and foremost splitting time with Greg Dulcich. And secondly, I think they do lean 3 wide with the amount of money they have invested in the wide receiver position. But again, Tim Patrick in the 12th is just a really, really good pick. As far as head scratcher picks, the weird ones, honestly, have all been auto draft. Rob Gronkowski in the 13th round, but Jones had won auto at that point. And so there are a lot of ones where the auto draft fit in. I honestly was searching. We do this segment where we call it my oops of the draft. I don't have an oops of the draft because I know Kevin was trolling. So all in all, this was a really good draft, even though Sleeper doesn't give us the option to have best ball. This was a really good best ball draft. Everybody really seemed to understand the assignment. They got at least 2 quarterbacks. They got multiple tight ends. The things that you wouldn't normally do in a redraft, you have to do in best ball because, again, you're not setting your lineup. There are no waivers. The best players that week for your team are your automatic starters, so you have to have multiple options at these normally onesie positions.
Tyler, any picks that stood out for you, whether good or bad?
I was looking at one. I loved Ryan's pick of Damian Pierce in the 10th. It was a great spot to get him. I'm personally a Texans fan. I want to see that backfield. I grew up, I fell in love with football in the Arian Foster and Andre Johnson days.
That's awesome.
And so kind of seeing what the backfield has turned into and gone completely downhill. I loved the pick of Damian Pierce in the draft. And I think getting him in the 10th round, he's got so much potential and so many things coming out of camp that.
Well, let me ask you this before you continue. Marlon Mack went at the 13-12.
Yeah.
So is Pierce in the 10th really that much better than maybe taking a chance on Mack in the 13th?
I think if you know Mack is going to fall to you in 13, which you never really know in a draft, I think Pierce honestly could have fallen to 11 or 12. There may have been, just with sleeper ADP, he was bumped up because of dynasty things and rookie drafts pushing him further up because people see him as a young asset. I think that they're in an actual best ball draft, Damian Pierce and Marlon Mack won't be separated by more than a round.
Yeah, 3 rounds.
And so I think if you're taking your pick of the litter, I take Damian Pierce over Marlon Mack just because Marlon Mack has been
we know what we're getting.
Yeah, he's been non-existent. I would love if he's, past that Achilles injury and he comes out and he's the Marlon Mack of old who's putting up 1,000 yards. But I think just in terms of we don't know what we're getting out of either player on the field, Damian Pierce is prototyped and kind of set out to be more of an RB1 for the Texans. He's just got that bigger body type that Lovie Smith is going to love. He's a big physical guy who's going to run people over, and it's hard not to love that scene. Hard not to love seeing that coming out of the backfield.
Yep.
I'll give my favorite pick really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we continue on. I'm going to give a shout out again to our guy, Zach. Mike Williams in the 6th round. We talked about this on our Wednesday show. There really is not much that separates Mike Williams from Keenan Allen right now. And Keenan Allen is going a full 3 rounds ahead of him. Both of them finished as top 12 wide receivers last year. Keenan Allen's yards per reception have really bottomed out over the last few years. We know he's good for the targets. We know he's going to get plenty of catches. There's still not a ton of touchdown upside. So I don't understand this huge ADP gap between the two guys. Like, I understand everybody is like, oh, well, Mike Williams is going to get hurt. Well, he didn't last year. He played, roughly all the games, and we saw what he's capable of. Sure, he had more boom weeks, bust weeks, etc. But that's what you want in a best ball format. You want those boom weeks, and you're going to get those types of weeks from Mike Williams more so than you will from Keenan Allen. So I'm going to say kudos here to Zach on the Mike Williams pick, and I'm sorry that I was inadvertently shitting on your Keenan Allen pick, Tyler.
Well, and we kind of talked about this, but he did something with Keenan Allen that we also talked about on the Wednesday show. Keenan Allen is his wide receiver 3, not even wide receiver 2. The value is there when you're not drafting him as your wide receiver 1. So I'm fine with his team build taking Allen where he took him. You hit the nail on the head. We talk about strategy on this show. The biggest knock on Mike Williams and the biggest knock on Tyreek Hill, not that he has any draft capital issues, is they're 2 boom or bust. These are the things you hear in normal redraft leagues. Best ball takes that out of the equation for you. So those are guys that stand a better value in best ball drafts because all you care about are those big weeks. You're hoping on their small weeks, one of your other guys can at least put up a mediocre week. So Josh, excellent point there. If you're diving into best ball for the first time, take away some of your own preconceived notions about boom or bust. Boom or bust is fantastic for best ball.
Love it. All right. So with that, Tyler, let's talk about your team. Let's walk through your strategy here. I'll reiterate Keenan Allen. I much rather would have had T. Higgins as your wide receiver 3. But hey, take it away, buddy. Tell us about your build, what you were trying to accomplish, and if you felt like you kind of had to waver from your start of the draft strategy.
Yeah, I would have also loved T. Higgins as my wide receiver 3, but sadly he was gone 3 picks before I could get to him.
Oh, that's right. He did go early.
Yeah, wrong way.
That's my bad. Okay.
If he was there,
my bad. Hell, I would have taken Deontay Johnson over Keenan Allen. Never.
Stop it.
But like I said at the start, you're taking kind of best player available. Jefferson and Lamb were that for me at the positions that they were at. I love kind of where they're going. I love where their trajectory is for the season. They should be consistently top of the position if I would have to project. Obviously, Jefferson but I would project Lamb as probably one of those top 7 to top 10 guys. I don't know if I can throw him top 5 yet, but he's got all the potential in the world to work up there. He's just got to actually get into it.
Well, I'll defend you. He actually just moved up to my wide receiver 4 in my latest projections. So I am all in on CeeDee Lamb. So I think it's a great pick.
Keenan Allen, same thing, best player available. I probably would have bit on Fournette and taken that 3rd round running back if he were there. I'm a big Javonte truther in Dynasty, but with them bringing Melvin Gordon back, there's talks and reports that it's going to be more of like a 60-40 Javonte and less half and half like it was last year. But until you see it on the field, you don't trust it. And also kind of the pain of going into the offseason and seeing them not re-sign Gordon for a little bit and having that, oh, he's going to be a bell cow. He's going to be the number 1 guy.
Pulled that tablecloth right out from under you. You know?
Exactly. I was fighting demons when I got that report in that they signed Gordon. Montgomery coming back. I felt like I needed to take a running back. Montgomery fell to me. Like I said, loved the position. I was semi-targeting DJ Moore in the 5th. I was between him and Hawkinson. DJ Moore fell out, or he was picked right before me. Judy fell to me. I love Judy. Love guys that can get open. So I went Judy over Hawkinson. Felt like I could wait on a tight end. Kenneth Walker, just kind of shore up. You need 2 RBs. I needed a second RB. And I like the potential that he has to beat Penny out. Penny's on 1 year, $2 million deal, if I'm correct on that. That's not a lot of promise of the team saying, hey, you're our guy, when they bring in a rookie that was as touted as highly as Kenneth Walker was. Kareem Hunt has been a big target for me in any kind of drafts. Everyone is stuck on the Nick Chubb stats from last year, and a lot of them don't realize that Kareem Hunt was out half the season. So all the extra usage that Nick Chubb was getting and all those higher stats than he was usually putting up were due partially in part to Kareem Hunt being out. So Hunt's coming in. It's a very high chance that Brissett is the starting quarterback for the entire season. He's going to need a dump-off guy. Kareem Hunt is a fantastic dump-off guy.
Yeah.
And I think he's just going to kill the PPR game. And going forward, we'll see what happens in Cleveland. But as playing in the bubble that we're in now, with it being the 4th of July and not August 27th, right before the season starts, and we know everything that's going on with the Browns and suspensions and how everything's going to be set up. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Kareem Hunt, great pick. One that I didn't suspect to fall to me, Drake London in the 8th. I was talking about Kyle Pitts. Drake London, almost every comp I saw for him was a Mike Evans or like a Vincent Jackson. Like all these big-bodied guys, they're going to go up and win one-on-ones. With Marcus Mariota at quarterback, we haven't seen him go out in a long while and have any sort of big passing volume. He was with the Raiders, and he was kind of the gimmick, read option type guy.
Yeah.
Balls on the one. You don't want to hurt Derek Carr. Bring Mariota in for a
we can hurt Marcus Mariota.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see him go out, but with a target that's as hard to hit as Drake London, I mean, he's got the wingspan, he's got the secure hands, he's got the big body to go up and get balls out of the air easily. I think that him falling to me at 8 was a great pick, especially seeing the 4 guys that went after him: Ertz, Davis, Ayuk, Cook, and then Melvin Gordon. I think out of at least the back half of that round, I made off like a friggin' bandit. Russell Wilson, the 9th. We were talking about Denver. They've got all the tools you could need for a good passing offense. They may commit to the run like they have before, but also they had Drew Lock before. And so, you don't go out and make a franchise-altering trade for a quarterback of Russell Wilson's caliber if you're just going to have him hand the ball off all the time.
All right, hey, Seattle made that mistake, so who's to say Denver can't? But I do want to bring this up, just simply not to interrupt Tyler, but you get here to Russell Wilson, something we haven't talked about in this entire draft: stats.
Yeah,
you drafted Jerry Jeudy, you get his quarterback Russell Wilson. As you'll see later, you draft Davis Mills, you grab Brevin Jordan. So getting these types of stacks can be very helpful in best ball.
Yeah, like y'all were talking about boom and bust weeks. There's going to be weeks that, teams go out and say Denver goes out and Russell Wilson throws for 400 yards and Jerry Jeudy just happens to grab 75 of those yards and a touchdown. As those teams have a good week, you're also having a good week, but it can also play out in best ball. Luckily, it's not setting the roster, but
yeah,
if those guys have a bad week, you could also have a bad week.
So did you come into the draft expecting QB late and tight end late? Because usually teams will go one or the other in best ball, but you did both, and to be honest, it worked out pretty damn well for you.
Yeah, I didn't plan on going. I go QB kind of middle of the pack because usually, you're not going to get, the Josh Allens, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Burrow type guys, but you're going to get sufficient guys that have boom bust potential or are just consistent. Like when we were talking about Pep taking Kirk Cousins at 12, he's going to be a consistent quarterback. He might not drop 40 points in any given week, but he's going to get you a good, 15, 18, 20 points.
Yeah.
And you then have the leeway to let other guys or to go for those dart throws like a Jameis Winston, who has the potential to go out and, have an insane week, but also could end up having -4 points almost every week. Loves the other team's jerseys for some reason.
Yeah.
But I didn't plan on quarterback and tight end late, really. I was looking sort of in the Kenneth Walker, that 6 to 8, Kenneth Walker, Kareem, Drake London. I was really planning on going quarterback or tight end to 8, and then Drake London fell to me. And I think I just got wrapped up in seeing Drake London in the 8th. I think it worked out for me, but
yeah,
kind of seeing a better player than I was expecting to be there, and then being able to formulate my team off that and kind of having that knowledge of, okay, I'm not getting an 8th round tight end or an 8th round quarterback, so I kind of need to make up for that in volume if I'm not necessarily getting that capital.
And that's exactly what I was going to say is for those looking into the strategy of this, if you're not getting an elite guy, that kind of lends itself to taking 3 of those players because you want to make sure you're getting that good week. Or if you're our boy Joe, you take 4 quarterbacks and just hope for the best out of one of them.
So. One of them's got to have a semi-decent week, right?
Yeah. I'm just going to jump over to my team now, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So for me, running backs got away from me, plain and simple. I typically try to attack these drafts as double tight ends. It's the way I play. It's why I liked Craig's draft from the start. And I wanted to see if I went out to the middle. I started off in the 12th slot. I decided to jump over to the 8th right before the draft started. I wanted to see if I went out to the middle, if it still played out the way I thought it would. It did. I mentioned, Deontay Johnson was kind of to wait and see on Pittman and McLaurin. I know it loses me favor with Josh, but I would rather have Pittman than Johnson, but I would rather have Johnson than McLaurin. I just wanted to see where they were going to fall. Plain and simple, running back got away. I like Eli Mitchell. If he's the number 1 guy, I feel good about getting him in the 5th. There's no guarantee he's the number 1 guy. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has all of his own issues, but again, I'm kind of hoping that we see what they saw in him. Maybe it was me editing a Devontae Smith article why I had to go ahead and grab him in the 7th round as my, I believe, 3rd wide receiver. And then I was able to back him up with Tyler Boyd. At that point, I knew I needed to get heavy on running back. I wanted to get my quarterbacks out of the way because I knew eventually they were going to start falling off the board. Love the offense. Dak Prescott, love the rushing upside of Trey Lance. If I can combine a big throwing quarterback with a big running quarterback, that's exactly what I'm looking to do. Obviously, if Lance doesn't win the job, I'm pretty sure he will. But if he doesn't, it puts me in a weird spot, only having 2 quarterbacks and one of them being Trey Lance. You mentioned Damian Pierce. Damian Pierce was big for me. At this point, I knew I had screwed the running back position up. I need guys who could be potential starters later in the season. Pierce was a guy, and then you actually stole a guy from me. Isaiah Spiller was going to be my next pick if I would have had a chance to get him. So losing Spiller hurt there a little bit. I wanted Spiller and just kind of load up on these rookies. I ended up back ending it with Khalil Herbert, who there's been good things out of Chicago that he may not just give the job back to David Montgomery. Mark Ingram should start for 6 weeks, so that kind of gives me a little bit of leeway at there. And then I just loaded up on high upside wide receivers. Even though I hate Paris Campbell, if the kid starts, he might actually do something. And then Boston Scott, Miles Sanders told us not to draft him, so I went ahead and took one of his backups instead.
Look, you're getting boom games with Boston Scott against the New York Giants.
Exactly.
Like I did my Eagles projections, and I penciled him in for 4 touchdowns. 2 for each game he plays the Giants.
There you go. So, and that's kind of what I was hoping there. I don't have an oops of the draft except for maybe myself, just the running back getting far, far away from me. I know we have a question in the chat. Josh, I didn't know if you want to bring it up on the screen. I now see you answered it.
Yeah, I mean, I went through and I answered it, but Ryan, I know you've already completed your rankings, so I'm actually kind of interested to get your opinion here. This mock draft here is half PPR. Obviously, it's best ball, so it is a little different from redraft. But Trey's asking how you would rank Cam Akers, James Conner, David Montgomery. In my head, I kind of have them all fairly bunched together pretty well. The only team from these 3 that I personally have projected is Montgomery so far, and I have him at 9 total touchdowns. I think James Conner can do that in his sleep. So that's why I think I would lean James Conner first here. So the question for me kind of becomes Akers over Montgomery.
So I am a very big hater of Cam Akers. I've put it in article form. I've said it on other podcasts. My issue with Cam Akers is, yes, the comeback from injury was superhero.
Spectacular.
Yeah. I will never downplay what the man did. I will never downplay his athleticism, but I also won't downplay 2.6 yards per carry, 2 fumbles, and not finding the end zone after he got back. We had pointed to Marlon Mack as the case study. Marlon Mack in his first year back was a healthy scratch for most of the season. Now, obviously, Cam Akers isn't playing behind Jonathan Taylor, but Darrell Henderson is not a bad running back, and they went and got Kieran Williams in the draft, though he's dealing with some injuries at this point. So they have other running backs there. I don't know that they're going to just bell cow Akers the way others do. So
I think they want to at least try. Like, that's why they drafted him. They gave him every single opportunity, even after he miraculously came back from that injury. Like, they said, hey, we want to give you the football. The problem was he just wasn't ready yet.
Yep. And
now
so
he's had a full offseason.
And he's saying he's 100%. I would like to see someone needs to be the first to be good after this injury. And if it's him, I will admit I'm wrong on him. Right now, I'm only giving him 177 carries for the season. So he falls in half PPR as my RB33. He is by far the last of this bunch. When it comes to, who am I comparing here? Connor, and there's one other one I'm forgetting.
Montgomery.
Connor and Montgomery are literally standing next to each other in half PPR as my RB13, RB14. I believe in Montgomery. I love James Conner. I don't think he's going to repeat his touchdowns. I like both of them to be over 220 carries this season. So they are both top 15 running backs for me. Akers is nowhere near that. I admit I could be wrong, but I am not buying into Cam Akers even a little.
I'd argue that James Conner is more likely to repeat the touchdowns than he is the receiving production.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way this offense is designed. They did the same thing with Kenyon Drake. It's short runs right up the middle in the red zone, and that's what they do.
But my only issue with that is they're still going to have to throw to their running back. They do. It's a part of the offense. And is it going to be rookie Keontae Ingram or Eno Benjamin? I feel like Connor
Benjamin hasn't been able to get on the field for 2 straight years.
Precisely.
That's why they drafted Keontae Ingram.
and I love Keontae Ingram. Don't get me wrong. I just don't know that they're going to put him in there right away. So I think Connor honestly could repeat the passing game work. And so we'll agree to disagree. But like I said, I like Connor as a top 15 running back, and I like David Montgomery. It was a great pick when Tyler made it earlier in the draft, and where they're going in drafts. Cam Akers is going around that same ADP. I don't know him on our draft board at this point. I didn't see where he went.
That's what I'm looking at. So on the draft board, it went Connor, Akers, Montgomery.
Okay, so 310, 41, 47. So they are 9 picks away from each other. So this is a great question for that. And I would avoid Akers. Connor, 3rd round for Connor seems fair. Monty, 4th round seems fair. Akers, for me to touch him, would probably need to be a 6th round pick, and it's just not going to happen. So
Tyler, I know obviously you're kind of more Devy Dynasty, but do you have some thoughts here on redraft, kind of who you would prefer? Obviously, we know you went Montgomery, but he was the last of the 3 to go.
Yeah. Like Ryan said, not like Ryan said, I don't think Connor is going to repeat on the touchdowns. I think it was kind of an outlier season. He went absolutely ballistic, and he lost any competition behind him that he had faced earlier in the season, because that back half of the season stretch was just insanity. And I would rank him 2 out of the 3 on those. Like I said on Montgomery, love Eberflus coming in. He's just a really good run game guy. I think a lot of Chicago is going to be predicated on the run game, especially with the fact that their top receiver is either Darnell Mooney or Cole Kmet, which I wouldn't put either of those as on any team.
Smart answer.
So I would rank it Montgomery, Connor, Akers. I think the way that it played out in the draft and the way that their ADP is set up is the way that it'll consistently be. Doing drafts now and doing drafts like right in the middle of preseason, it's like a stock market. People's ADPs are going to go up, go down. And so you kind of want to get them while they're in a good spot. I feel like Montgomery's in a really good spot right now, falling in that middle to back half of the 4th. But I think my rankings would go Montgomery, Connor, Akers. But I think the way that it played out with Connor, Akers, Montgomery, just based on recency bias above everything.
Yeah, people are really starting to turn on David Montgomery. I've noticed just the general narrative around Montgomery is negative, whereas Connor, it's kind of neutral, and Akers, it's positive. And obviously I have my thoughts on that.
And like y'all said, I mean, all power to the man. What he did coming back was amazing. Yeah. But in terms of fantasy, coming back and not doing anything on a football field is not helpful to anyone in our community. Like, we can look at, great human feats, but we want guys to go out there and score points when we're playing these games. And so until I see Akers come back, he could be the 1 in a million, but insanity is doing the same thing over and over. Outcome.
Tyler, I like you, buddy. You're a smart cookie.
If we've seen 150 guys tear their Achilles and none of them have come back the same, and none of them, at least within that first 2 to 3 year window, have come back and really done anything noteworthy in terms of fantasy and statistics, going out and taking Akers in the 4th, especially in this, ahead of guys like Breece Hall or Dobbins or Montgomery or even Josh Jacobs. I'm pretty high on Josh Jacobs, like I was talking about on Kirk. Sometimes consistency is.
You should read my Josh Jacobs article, which comes out.
That's some free time later today.
Quick plug.
But yeah, I mean, taking him where he's going, like Ryan said, that 6th round would be a great sweet spot for him. Because if he's fallen down there to say 6-1, like replace him and Dalton Schultz, and you've got him going before Clyde and Damian and Kenneth Walker and AJ Dillon, I feel like that's a really good spot for him, for me to be like, okay, this is a good price I'm willing to pay. But there's going to be someone in every league that sees his age, sees the fact that he came back from Achilles injury in 9 months, and doesn't see the statistics that came with coming back from an Achilles injury in 9 months. So I personally am going Montgomery, Connor, Akers, but I wouldn't be surprised if 99 out of the 100 drafts that I would see would be Connors, Aker, Montgomery in terms of how they get drafted.
All right, so we're going to end on this note because a subscription hangs in the balance.
We need him.
Craig, we need you, buddy. I'm going to pose this, and then we'll outro, and we'll let everybody plug their stuff. So
I love that the question was completely neutral.
What are your thoughts on Jamison Crowder this year now with the Buffalo Bills? Tyler, I'll start with you.
Crowder's in an interesting position. Obviously, he's going into a lot better QB room going from Zach Wilson to Josh Allen. I think that I'm really high on Diggs this year. I know there's going to be a lot of Gabe Davis hype and a lot of Dawson Knox hype.
Yeah.
I think I'll go out of left field and say it. I think Jamison Crowder has the potential to be the wide receiver 2 on that team. I think, like I said, with recency bias in the running backs, Gabe Davis putting up 4 touchdowns in the actual NFL playoffs is insane. Like, no one has ever done that. And seeing it happen was great. But look at everything that he did during the season. Those 4 touchdowns. Let me look at his stats real quick, because I think that those 4 touchdowns also either.
His regular season he had 35 catches, 549, and 6 touchdowns last year.
Okay, so he had 2/3 of touchdowns in the playoff game that he had during the regular season, and I think that the hype is just crazy on him. I sold him for a crazy package right after that game in one of my dynasty leagues.
Good for you. That's exactly what you should.
Well, it was him and Tyler Higbee for, I want to say, Freiermuth and then like 2 first-round picks. It was insane.
Yeah, that'll work.
But I think that Jamison Crowder has the potential to be the wide receiver 2 out of Buffalo. That's not to say that he's going to be anything extremely special in fantasy, but I think that he'll be given the opportunity the same way that Emmanuel Sanders was for like half the season last year to come in and kind of take over the room that's not Stephon Diggs and then hopefully make something out of that. I don't think he has full season success. I think he's very boom or bust type guy. So great for best ball, not great for redraft unless you just really know how to play your cards right on him. But I don't think that he's going to be anything extremely fantasy worthy unless you're in a decently deep league.
Yeah, I mean, if you'd asked me this question 48 hours ago, I would be very much high on Jamison Crowder. 184 vacated targets between Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley. And I would have thought Jamison Crowder, you can just pencil him in for the slot role. It actually turns out Isaiah McKenzie out of Camp Reports has the lead in the slot role right now. So I am a big Jamison Crowder guy. I spent all last year defending him with the New York Jets rather. Josh was killing me for it. Joe was killing me for it.
How'd that work out for you?
And it wasn't great. Terrible yards per catch, terrible touchdown rate. Josh Allen fixes a lot of those problems. So I agree 100% with what Tyler said. I think Jamison Crowder does end up being the second best target on this offense. I think it may take a few weeks. So I am pro Jamison Crowder, but not pro September Jamison Crowder, October and beyond.
So, Craig, it feels like that my opinion here is what's keeping you in tune and potentially hovering over that subscribe button. So I'm going to politely apologize, and hopefully you still hit that subscribe button because I'm out on Jamison Crowder.
Yeah.
I think he has the opportunity to come in and catch some balls, which is great. But Josh Allen is somebody that he likes that rapport. Those are the guys that he goes to. He had it with Beasley. He had it with Diggs. And I don't know where that lies right now with Crowder. Diggs is still there. Davis has been there. We saw what he will do with Davis when he's open. He will find him, and Davis will score touchdowns. I think you're going to see a season that is very similar to what we saw last year with Emmanuel Sanders, where he has some good games. He has some games where he absolutely disappears, and then he has some games where he's on the injured list. That's what you're getting out of Jamison Crowder. I don't really think he's going to have more than like 75 targets. And at that point, as like maybe a fourth option in this offense, best ball. That's I would throw a late round dart at him in best ball. And I think that's a pretty great way to end the show since we were doing a mock draft for best ball.
There you go.
So with that, Craig, we love you, buddy. And your gift game is absolutely fantastic. I just want to throw that out there. So, Tyler, I just want to say thank you for joining us here on this latest edition of Mock It Like It's Hot. Tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter, where they can find your work, and everything that you're working on this football season.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me. First off, super fun. Love to come on again at any point if y'all like
Absolutely.
to talk about anything. You can find me on Twitter at FF_TJ Hernandez. Probably should have put it in the name, like y'all have it.
Oh yeah.
Didn't think
My
about
bad.
that.
I should have said something earlier on. So
I got like 2 minutes into the show and realized I didn't want to change it in the middle of the show. But at FF_TJ Hernandez, I write for the Debbie department over at dynastynerds.com. Debbie, a lot of people don't know about it. You're drafting college players coming out, and you're kind of holding them and holding those assets and hoping that they become NFL players and become big guys in the NFL. Like Bijan Robinson is a big guy. Everyone's kind of
101, baby.
Yeah. Everyone, watch Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm big on Jahmyr Gibbs this year, but everyone's scouting him out right now for your next dynasty fantasy draft, and people have had him for 2 years in Debbie. Like, it's a great place to be. We're trying to inform people and help the Debbie game grow. So over on dynastynerds.com, I've got articles. We've got a fantastic team of writers, fantastic podcasts, and I think that's all my plug for Dynasty Nerds.
perfect.
Love it. All right. You can, hey, hit that subscribe button. Be like Craig. Support good people that have a lot of fun on early morning Mondays to help you kickstart your week.
Even holidays.
Exactly, except Ryan's vacation, because that's the biggest holiday.
Holiday.
You can find Ryan at the Fantasy 5. That's 5 spelled out. You can find me at the One Hudsonian. That's the number 1, because we got to be different. Obviously, Tyler, thank you so much. At FF_TJ Hernandez on Twitter. You can follow Club Fantasy at Club Fantasy FFL on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The URL is clubfantasyffl.com, where we have a whole slew of player spotlight articles as part of our A Look Inside team preview series. Last week, we dropped articles on Michael Pittman, Justin Herbert, Michael Thomas. Spoiler, don't draft him at wide receiver 24.
Please stop.
This week, so far, we're dropping, in about a little over less than an hour.
Yeah.
Article on Devonta Smith from our man Drew Metcalf, who also wrote the Michael Pittman article. Got a couple more articles dropping this week, and 3 every single week as we lead right up to our Women of Fantasy Football shows in August. Wednesday, we are back with a new episode of No Punt Intended as we welcome Michelle Majuk from Ball Blast Football and the NFL media, not NFL Network. I gotta cross those things a little bit. And next week we'll be back with our guest from this past Wednesday's No Punt Intended, Nate Cheatham from IDP Guys. We're doing a PPR redraft mock with an IDP curveball.
That's right.
All right. So with that, I also want to point out that we are giving away a signed J.K. Dobbins Ravens jersey. You can head over to clubfantasyffl.com. You can click on the autographed picture of the Dobbins jersey, and that will take you over to the website where you can buy raffle tickets for $5. You can buy 1, you can buy 20, you can buy 200. It really does not matter. What you need to know is every single dollar and penny and cent or whatever currency is going towards support of the Trevor Project as we close out Pride Month. As many of you know, we have members on our team that are part of the LGBTQ community. We want to show our love and support, not just for them, but the community as a whole, because love is love, people, and that's the way that it should be. So get your raffle tickets. You can go to our Twitter page as well, at Club Fantasy FFL. It is the pinned tweet, so you can click on that link, and it will take you right over to the site. So far, we have raised $300. I would love it if we could hit 400 and maybe even beyond. But hey, at the end of the day, that's up to you. And Ryan, from what I gather, you kind of teased it in the beginning of the show.
Yes.
We got an announcement, right? Yeah.
So it's been a weird summer. We started this show about 2 months ago with Evan Bush and myself. And Evan got a new job and is no longer available Monday mornings as of now. And Josh has been so graciously filling in, butchering names and being tired. And no, Josh is great, but Josh works nights. And so we had one of our writers on the show, a few weeks ago, Austin Amendola, and I reached out to him about being the co-host, and he has graciously accepted. So starting next week, I will move into the host seat. Austin will kind of take over as the lead drafter. So I'll still be here to shit talk Cole Kmet and talk bad things about your draft. Austin is going to break down the strategy. It's going to be a really great show. He's off for the rest of the summer, so he's going to be here with us. So a little bit different look next week. Josh, we really do appreciate it. Evan, we appreciate you helping us get this show off the ground. And you guys can obviously come back whenever you want, but Austin's going to step in, and he and I are going to run this show starting next week.
I'll be in the chat from my bed on my phone.
I love it.
That's what I'm going to do.
I do want to quickly throw out, Josh, you got your digital mic at the very beginning. For the J.K. Dobbins raffle, you can go to our website, clubfantasyffl.com, and just click on the Dobbins jersey. Raffle tickets are $5 a piece. It is also our pinned tweet at Club Fantasy FFL on Twitter. So everything else you said came out perfectly, Josh, just the how to sign up.
Of course, the important part. Yeah, sounds
exactly.
about right. All right, with that, once again, you can follow Tyler at FF_TJ Hernandez. You can follow Ryan at the Fantasy 5, myself at the One Hudsonian, Club Fantasy FFL on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We will see you guys next week with a new host, a new guest analyst, and a new guest.
Let's do it.
See you guys. Take care.